Welcome to the Lift Heavy Run Long podcast. My name is Wilson Horrell and my co-host is Vaughn Rawls. You can find us at www.liftheavyrunlong.com or on Twitter and Instagram at LiftRunLong, or feel free to email me directly at wilson@liftheavyrunlong.com. The mission of LHRL is simply this: to inspire and be inspired. Tune in every week as we speak with some of the world's most interesting people. Enjoy the show and find your bliss. Okay, and welcome to the Lift Heavy Run Long podcast, episode number 27. My name is Wilson Horrell, and my co-host is Vaughn Rawls, and we have the pleasure today of speaking with Mr. Ty Draney, who has been coaching high school track, high school athletics, cross country for 15 years. He's coached more than 40 all-state athletes, 5 state championship teams, and has been named regional and state coach of the year 14 times. Goodness gracious. Ty has also placed top 5 at Hardrock, Wasatch, Bear, and Bighorn 100-mile races, and has won at least one race at every distance from 50K to 100 miles. And he recently finished the first ever Bear 200 double bear in under 65 hours.
That's about it. I don't know. That's all. That's it in a nutshell.
Jeez. Wow. That's pretty impressive resume.
I bore easily, I guess. I always have to be doing something. So yeah, it's fun and it keeps me busy. I enjoy working with the kids and I've found that, kind of doing both of them together works nicely. There's a certain buy-in, especially for my own athletes when they know I've been there, done that. And that empathy that we have as a community, because at some point in any run, no matter the distance, there's going to be a certain amount of suffering. And so that I think that's the glue that binds us together.
And where is it that you coach?
We're about 60 miles. We're in western Wyoming. We're about 60 miles south of Jackson Hole. Little community. The whole valley, the high school is called Star Valley High School. The valley's about 40 miles long, anywhere from 2 to 15 miles wide, and they all come to one high school. We have about 700 kids in our high school.
Did you grow up in that area?
I did. In fact, this is not the same high school I went to. And as far as the building is concerned, that one's been torn down and we have a new building. I spent 15, 20 years in other places, and then as luck would have it, we decided we wanted to raise our kids here, and we've been able to come back. And we've been here for, I think this is, trying to think now, 14th year that we've been back home. So,
how many kids do you have?
3. I have twin daughters that are seniors, and then I have a son that's an 8th grader.
Wow, fantastic! And did you grow up doing track? Have you done track your whole life?
I did. Back in the day, our school didn't have a cross-country team. I was a 3-sport athlete. I mostly played football because I didn't want to go home and milk cows. That was worth getting my head beat in every night to avoid having to do chores. My dream was first to be the next Steve Young, left-handed guy. Didn't work out when you graduate and you're 128 pounds, but played a little basketball. That was also kind of my love, and then I ran track in the spring. So ran a little bit in college, at junior college here, fairly close, and kind of had the bug. Other than a couple years off, kind of been what I do.
Was there ever a time that you got out of running when you got out of college? Was there a fat and out of shape period or a lazy period?
A little bit. There was a little bit of time when my wife was expecting our daughters. We were expecting 1 and not 2, and when that kind of shook down our world a little bit. And I spent a little time not running, and then after they were born, I immediately kind of went back to running because you got to relieve a little stress somewhere, right? And so the parenting and going to school and trying to get my degree and all those things. So always done it a little bit, but as far as training and being involved in events, there were a couple of years when I could kind of put it on the back burner a little bit.
So you have all the madness that comes along with having twin girls and then a third child and staying busy with coaching and what you're doing. And at what point did you say to yourself, I want to bring a little bit more chaos into my life and start running ultra races?
Well, it's kind of interesting path to ultra races. When I was student teaching in 2000, I was actually back here in this exact same room where I'm teaching now, oddly enough, but I was student teaching and I decided I'd run a marathon. That's kind of the next step, right? And so, being busy with that and putting in a whopping like 15, 20 miles a week to run my first marathon. I signed up for the Park City Marathon, and which the course kind of rolls out of town on this rail trail, and then you got to climb back in, and I did like everybody in their first marathon, all excited about that. Through about 20 miles, I was probably at about 240 pace, and then the wheels just completely came off, and basically walked it in, and I swore I'd never run that far again. Before we moved to Oregon, I actually taught in Oregon for 3 years. I ran up at Jackson. They had a 20K trail race, and I had trained on trails and run, the dirt roads and things around here all during college and stuff. But then I ended up running this trail race, and it was the most fun I ever had in my life. And so we were in transition. I took my first job up on the Oregon coast, and so when we moved up there, I started looking for events and things to do on trails, and it just happened to be that most of the stuff that I could find, at least that would work with my schedule, was kind of ultra stuff. So I started dabbling, and peer pressure, you fall in with the wrong crowd. You see, that's what happens. And I'm still trying to kick the habit. So, yes, that's kind of how it went down. And I've gone to some other things. I've gone through some injuries. I had surgery recently, and I've tried different things, and I enjoy doing other things. I keep coming back to the running because it's easier for me maybe than those other things, or, just the fulfillment, I think, of kind of being in the grind and day in and day out, and things can go bad at work or whatever. And, there's a certain amount of accomplishments that you always feel, well, at least, I got in my training run today, or if it's a bad day, it's like, well, there's much more motivation to go take it out on a trail somewhere. So, yeah, it's definitely kind of enveloped my life for sure.
What did you find at the trail race that you didn't find at the road marathons and track events?
Partially the community, and then when you can run that hard and have that much fun and have views of the Tetons, it's pretty hard, not to like. There's nothing, not to like about it.
You said that you were running a 2 hour and 40-minute pace during a marathon. I have no idea what that look or feels like.
That's pretty fast, Wilson.
I feel confident of that. You said that the wheels fell off at about mile 20. I'm curious, when the wheels fall off of someone going that fast, is that an absolute bonk? I mean, are you just down to a crawl?
Oh yeah, we've got some video somewhere. I basically walk into the water station, and my daughters were probably 2 at the time, and I get a drink, and then they come, walking over, 2-year-old walking over, and they want a drink. So I took another drink. I gave them a drink. I drank. They wanted some more drink. And yeah, at one point, my hamstrings were starting to cramp, or my quads, because there's kind of all the downhill at first. And so I kind of, do a quad stretch and pull my leg back behind me. And then my hamstring cramped up so tight. I was literally watching, the lead pack run away from me, and I was standing on the road in one leg, trying to figure out what I was supposed to do next. And yeah, I was way overreaching, what my training was, for sure. But you learn and you remember those experiences.
Oh yeah, that's a terrible feeling when you bonk like that.
Well, I don't think that you get to where you don't accomplish the things that you accomplish without setting expectations too high, or being a little off mentally, maybe, if you could take that as a compliment, which is the way that I mean it.
Well, that's one of the things that, everyone's always saying, you're running that, running that far, doing those things, you must be crazy. And I always quote my dad. They always said the same thing. He's an engineer by trade, but came back and to run the family farm, and has spent the last 40 years milking cows. And he always says, you don't have to be crazy, but it helps. That's my go-to.
So you went from the marathon, and then what happened? Like you said, all you could really find was ultras to run. So what was your first ultra that you did? And
my first ultra was the Hag Lake 50K in Forest Grove, Oregon. So kind of between. I lived in Tillamook, That's where my first teaching job, and I ran there, and I don't know, I was 10th or something, but it was really muddy and really fun and really hard, and spend a little time. Actually, that was my second one. My first one was the Winterhawk 50K. Doesn't exist anymore. Was in Forest Park in Portland, where you run from the one edge clear into the zoo. Yeah, again, having a pretty good day and kind of fell to pieces at the end, and I couldn't figure out where all those old guys went ripping past me at the end, just because they knew better. But that turned out to be guys like, Dave Terry and Steve Smucker and a bunch of these guys that, were legends. And as a newbie, you don't know those kind of things, but
you're fortunate to be able to not only have all that beautiful country to run in, but also you probably get to encounter some pretty impressive athletes as well.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And cool people, great athletes and cool people. I always tell people there's about 2 people that in all these years of doing this that I could really say that I wouldn't go bowling with them. I had a hard time being around them. Overall, a great community and very supportive and very understanding. And I suppose it's that way with anything, any time a person can get in a like-minded community, it feels like home, and it's a nice addition to your life.
Well, I've wondered that about elite athletes, people like yourself that are front of the pack finishers, if y'all get along as well as everyone else seems to. I mean, it's easy for someone to get along with me because I'm finishing towards the back of the pack. I'm not a threat to take anything away from someone. And I didn't know if the trail community was as hospitable among the elite as they seem to be everywhere else.
Well, first of all, I appreciate that. I hardly consider myself elite. I like when everyone says, "What's the legend term?" And that just means you're older than dirt, and you've been doing this longer than probably you should have. But definitely, I don't know, elite. But I've had quite a bit of success. I think probably there's a little more ego up front. I mean, there's a certain amount of ego that all of us have, a certain amount of it that drives them. But I could honestly say that in my experience, it's no different. I think probably the expectation and where it gets harder, especially as younger guys coming in the sport, and if they're financially linked with that, and I think that pressure might change that some, because they feel like they need to perform. They're having a bad day, but the true ambassadors of the sport, they'll jog it out. They'll run in with the mid-packer guys, and most of the guys I know are willing and able to they're going to go like mad, and they're going to push, and they're going to train, and they're going to do this thing, and they're going to set that aside, and you see that recently. You got guys like Carl Meltzer doing it forever. Last year he helped Scott Jurek set the record on the Appalachian Trail, and then the next year he goes the opposite way, going a gunning for the record, and who's there helping him at the end? There's Scott Jurek, helping him break his record. And so I think there's a common theme throughout all that.
Do you have a coach?
I do not. I do not have a coach. In fact, for about the last couple of years, I've been dabbling in that a little myself, doing a little online coaching and a few things. And I went through that time, and I was trying to decide whether I wanted one, whether I needed one, in which ways it would be beneficial. And I'm sure it would be. And kind of for me, what I decided is since that's what I do, I spend all my time outside of teaching Spanish, coaching these high school kids. I should be able to put something together for myself. And I've kind of figured out anyway, after all this trial and error, what works for me after, 15 years of screwing it up.
Well, I don't have a coach either. And the reason for that is because I don't win any races. And I'm afraid if I got a coach, people would start expecting me to perform.
Yeah, I guess that's another thing that I guess there's that pressure, right? If no one else, your pocketbook, right? If you're paying for somebody to help you out,
that's right.
So yeah, you gotta know what motivates you.
Do you run? Are you sponsored by anyone, or do you do this simply for the sport of it?
I am. I have some great sponsors. I run currently for the Patagonia Ultra Running Team, Ultra Spire, Black Diamond Equipment, First Endurance. I have a few sponsors. I do not make money at this. I'm mostly involved with product testing and helping them with what they need, and they provide me with products and things for my adventures and my races. But yeah, so bottom line, so yes, but no, I guess there's no one's paying me to do this. So I'd say somewhere in the middle with that.
It says here that that you did the first ever double bear 200 miler in under 65 hours.
Yeah, it was a bad idea that kind of stuck, and I finally had to, I guess, pony up. My first ever 100-mile race when we moved back to this area was the Bear 100. They changed in, I'm trying to think what year it was, 2008, I think. They changed the course from the original course from a point to point from Logan, Utah to Bear Lake, Idaho, which is the finish line's about an hour from here. So I ended up running it. I actually ended up winning the first time on this course change. So I kind of had this idea because they had some cool awards, your 10-year award, that if I ran it every year for the next 6 years or whatever, then I'd get my 10-year buckle, or I can't even remember what it was at this point. Well, with my high school coaching schedules, things have gotten in the way, and I only ran it a couple times between then and a couple of years ago. When was that? Not last year, the year before. Or was it last year? I can't even remember now. So I turned 40. I decided that the way to celebrate that would be to do a double, because with my original plan to finish 10 before my 40th birthday, I'd have to run it twice. So that's kind of where the seed got planted. Again, real life got in the way, but then when I turned 40, I was like, how do we properly celebrate this? I'm happily married, and I'm a public educator. I can't afford a Corvette, so this is my midlife crisis moment, I guess. So
somehow you were able to make logic of turning 40 years old. Therefore, I'll run 200 miles.
Somehow, yeah, you go, because it's like a lot of things. I mean, because you want to celebrate it. I mean, everybody wants to reach their 40th birthday, but then when you get there, you're like, I don't know. And so, anyway, so the plan, and because it was local and it was here, and Leland Barker, the race director, is a good friend of mine, has been a great mentor. Anyway, the race has a 36-hour cutoff. I started at the finish line. 72 hours for the complete race cutoff. Started at the finish line. I had some crew and stuff. There's no aid stations, but they crewed and paced, and I ran from the finish line to the start line. Got lost a couple times. About stepped in a dead bloated cow, and anyways, a few exciting things like that. But I ended up getting to the start line about midnight. I figured I could do it in 26, 27 hours pretty comfortably. And getting lost and a few naps, and that's trying to figure out that whole thing. The 200 miles, it's a different mindset than even racing 100 miles. I got about 5 hours of sleep and was at the starting line for the race, and then ran with all the racers back to the finish. So that 65 hours was cumulative time, and about 8 or 9 hours of that was sleeping.
I thought I was cool for running 40 miles on my 40th birthday.
Yeah. No, that is cool. No doubt about it.
That's pretty impressive. But I want to go back. You said you're on your first or on that Bear 100. You said you actually won that race the first time. What kind of time are we looking at when you win a 100-mile race like that?
Well, it varies so much. It's kind of like cross country running, in the fall as opposed to track in the spring. The courses vary so much. I was just under 20 hours. For that time, and that which was, so I held the course record for a whole entire year or something, till someone like Jeff Rose or some of the guys you're talking about, the elite guys, show up, and then they rolled that up. And the course record, I'm trying to remember his name, a guy from Montana blew it up a couple years later, because I was there running, and I was like about 20 hours again, and he was like 17 something. And so it varies. At Hardrock, a great day is to be under 30 hours. And I think most people on a course like the Bear, if you can run under 24, you're having a good day.
Wow. That's just mind numbing to me. I did a 50-mile race that was completely flat and soft terrain, and it took me almost 15 hours. And just so both of you know, on my 40th birthday, which just happened about a month ago, I ran 7 miles in about 2 hours, and then I ate probably 6 pounds of shrimp. So y'all need to step your game up.
Yeah.
Say 40 donuts.
I'm surprised I didn't see y'all out there.
Yeah, well, if I would have known, I'd been there, especially for the shrimp. Good seafood's pretty hard to come by in Western Wyoming, so it'd have been worth. Maybe I'd have just had to run there and then enjoy some shrimp with you.
It sounds like you could have done it faster than you would fly there.
Maybe save the layovers anyway.
So what does your training look like? Do you get to train with your athletes that you coach?
Yeah, I do, actually, and that's kind of been part of the puzzle figuring out for me. I usually, we came to the agreement again, being busy with family and things as we end up. My wife told me that, if you're going to do this crazy stuff, anywhere between when the kids go to bed and when they wake up, that's your time if you want it. Invest in a good headlamp and spend a lot of time running around in the dark, especially this time of year. But typically try to get in an hour, 90 minutes in the morning, and then whatever that I'm running with the kids, So as it turns out, it kind of flip-flops what I do. So throughout the spring, I'm actually doing quite a bit of speed work and running fast. And then when my schedule opens in the summer, that's when I can, get into longer runs and get in some of that mountain and trail time that I need to get ready for some of these types of races.
Are you strictly running, or do you do any cross training or weightlifting or anything like that?
We do some lifting, and we'll do some lifting with the kids, usually from about December to March. Do some gym work then. Right now I am. In August, I had Achilles surgery, and so I actually haven't run since I did a 30K with my son at the Scout Mountain Ultra Trail in June, and I actually haven't run a step since then. Had surgery in August, and then I'm just working back to bike, and I'm hoping to be running again here in a few weeks. It'd be interesting. I've spent a lot of time recently, especially on got a gravel grinder kind of bike, and in the winter I spend some time otherwise too with a big fat tired bike on some of the groomed snowmobile trails around here too.
Do you have anything picked out that you have your sights on for when you come back to running?
I haven't really, and that's usually people ask me that a lot when they finally see me out of the boot and following my kids around on the four-wheeler. They say, "Hey, what race is coming up next?" And kind of on purpose, I've held off on that. A couple of reasons. So my daughters are graduating in the spring and they're heading off to college. We're trying to figure out all that, how to pay 2 college tuitions. So anybody out there has any scholarships, let me know. And then I've tried not to, because I don't want to feel like I want to make sure I get this back and healthy before I feel any pressure to really train and really push it out there. I want to make sure I kind of have 100% bill of sale. And this is something I want to do my whole life, whether that means, I have to ratchet it down a notch or whatever, but I want to make sure I'm healthy so I can enjoy it again. I've been battling this Achilles thing off and on for probably 2 or 3 years. Turned out that it was actually torn. So had to take care of it.
Do you have a life goal set up for somebody that turns 40 and runs 200 miles? I can only imagine what you set your sights on after that.
Yeah, you got to have a pretty impressive bucket list.
Well, I've been pretty lucky. I've had the lottery gods for different races have treated me kindly. There's still a few out there that I like to do. I think more and more that it's places I want to run, even more than races. I'd like to get back to Europe. Been there a couple times. That's lots of fun. And so there's more places than races or distances at this point. I don't have a goal of like, I need to run 500 ultras or anything like that. This injury's been bugging me enough. I'm excited to get back out and do some adventuring and plotting. I've got some good friends, guys like Jared Campbell and Luke Nelson. We all have lots of bad ideas, and we're just like, hey, let's go try that this weekend. And so looking forward to getting back to some of that.
Yeah, I have a terrible list of friends as well that do the same kind of what they consider encouraging.
Yeah. There's a fine line, isn't there?
When you're at your peak, what kind of mileage do you put in a week?
I would say I have built up as much like in the summer, but it's not for sustained as much as maybe 120, 130 miles in a week. But that's that's with some big couple like back-to-back long runs and stuff. But most of the year, I'd say I'm closer that I average 50 or 60, just because of time constraints, right? And I think part of that has been a blessing in disguise because, well, there's a lot of guys that come in hot and heavy and they're done in a year or two, right? Because it's just not sustainable to be able to train like that. And so I think just be consistently running and most of the time lower and be able to build up to a peak. But again, that's like 1 week peak. That's no way sustainable for me and my schedule because I'd like to stay married and, keep a job and stuff like that. So
you're a wise man. I can tell that. Can you tell me a little bit about the Barkley marathons?
Yeah, you talked about the peer pressure. And Mr. Jared Campbell is a really good friend of mine, and we've done a lot of things together. And he's been talking to me about it forever, like since he first started and how much he loved it. And was not this last fall, the fall before, we decided we were going to make an attempt at the unsupported record on the John Muir Trail in California. And it was one of those adventures that was adventure from the get-go because everything went wrong, it seemed like. And we ended up pulling the plug about 70 miles in, and he got sick, and my Achilles was driving me crazy. And that trail becomes, to get out of, you just get deeper and deeper, and then it becomes, you got to finally finish. And we just didn't think that was wise in our current conditions. So we bailed. And
record?
3 days and 8 hours or something like that.
And how long is it?
217 miles, I believe. And so, lots of, I don't know how the elevation change in it is pretty mind blowing. And yeah, we made it about a day and a half in, and we pulled the plug. But, he had finished it twice. He's like, you got to do it. You got to do it. And so it's one of those things that you're with him and he's that kind of guy. I'm like, yeah, that sounds awesome. And then I'd get home and I'd be like, what on earth are you kidding me? That sounds like the worst idea in the world. And anyway, gave me some of the beta, and I finally pulled the trigger. And yeah, there's nothing quite like getting your first condolence letter from Laz, and a sinking gut feeling in your gut. And then, so I spent a lot of time doing it.
Is that really a sinking feeling in your gut? I mean, I can only imagine when you get that, you have to have a moment of, this was really, really a bad idea.
Oh, for sure. In fact, I got a text from Jared. He's like, did you get your letter? I'm like, I don't know. Am I supposed to get it? So I checked my email, and then I about threw up on my computer, because I'm just like, oh, man. Because it happens, right at the 1st of January. I'm like, 3 months in Wyoming, to get ready for something like that. And so we made a go at it. It totally lived up to my expectations. The people there, Laz, the whole scene. If most people have seen the movie, and the movie's become the old book. We always joke about it. Have you seen the movie? Oh yeah. Everyone knows what you're talking about. The navigation is even more of an Achilles heel than my actual Achilles heel, and I knew that's where I was going to get in trouble, and that's where it ended up going. I was lucky to jump in with Jason Poole, who's a master navigator, and we were never lost, but you're always going to end up off course. Just it's incredible how much all that stuff looks the same in those mountains, and trying to get your bearings, and finding our way. And it finally started to make sense. Well, I wasn't even going to go out for the third lap. I'm like, we did 2 laps in a decent amount of time, but I was like, at this pace, the way we're slowing down, we're not going to make it through 3. I was not going to go out. And then Jared's wife, Mindy, was helping me. She's like 5 months pregnant, helping me, crewing me and doing all these things, and was so nice. And other people are yelling, obscenities at me, how I can't be a quitter. And I'm just like, you know what, if I can get away from you, I'm out of here, So I strapped him on and went out for one more lap. And yeah, it turns out we ended up getting timed out. We had one more book to find, and then we had to get back to camp, I think you have to have the first 3 laps done in 40 hours. And we ended up coming back to camp in 42 hours or something. So we did our 3 laps, had all my pages, but officially we only got 2 laps in. I was pretty grateful though at that point. At least when you got done then, they knew you couldn't send you out again,
To be clear, if I were to do the Barkley marathons and I came in at 42 hours on my third lap instead of 40 hours, it would be officially 3 laps that I would have gotten in.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was, but it wasn't. It's one of those things. So some of the old timers would want to split
No,
hairs
I
with all that.
understand.
Yeah, and I just tell people, yeah, I did 3 laps, and most people don't know or care to ask about, the time or whatever. And then I just say, yeah, we were timed out, and it was a deep, dark sleep. I tell you, after that, that's the longest I'd ever been up. I was awake, because you don't know exactly when it's going to start. They blow the conch shell, and you've got 1 hour, and there's like a 12-hour window when the race is going to start. I was up for 2 days. 48 hours, no naps, no anything.
And that was
like
before the race started.
Well, yeah, that's what you travel, and then you've got, everyone thought it was going to be early. You wake up early, and then it ends up they started at 10:30 or something, and then it's just go, 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 right? We didn't have the luxury to be able to take naps or anything, so you just keep plodding along, plowing through. And so 42 hours later, they play taps, and it's time for a nap. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
You said it started at 10:30. Is that AM or PM?
AM, I believe. Yeah, they have like he says it can start between midnight and noon on the day of the race. And so you have to be there. And then an hour before the race starts, he blows his conch shell, and then you got to pull all your stuff together and line up at the yellow gate, and away you go.
You must really have to have a navigational skill to finish something like that.
No doubt about it. And it kind of played out with this too. And, and you end up, those of us that, like me, who don't navigate well, you jump on with a veteran, that's been there, that can navigate. And then, yeah, it's crazy how fast it goes to pieces. I mean, they got down, Jared and Gary ran step for step together, that whole thing. And then on that last lap, you have to go opposite directions.
I was kind of curious whether or not, if you're a new person to this, you obviously had friends going into it, but like if there's somebody like me who was going to go do that and not really know anybody, obviously I have to know somebody to get in. But what if I don't know somebody that's a navigator? Is that like looked down upon, or is it like, hey, sure, you're more than welcome to follow me because I know what I'm doing, that kind of thing?
It just depends on the person. There's some lingo. I believe they call it scraping. There's some of that too. Some of the veterans like to scrape the virgins. They call them, they like to, and then you end up in the woods. You're by yourself trying to figure it out, right?
Oh, yeah.
God.
Yeah.
I got lost on a 5K that involved running over one bridge and back down the other in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Yeah.
And I didn't figure it out until about mile probably 5 when I was coming back down the third bridge.
There's one too many bridges. That's a bad.
Bridges. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I can count to 3.
Well, yeah, it can happen. I've been lost lots of times, and so if I were to go back, that's usually what everyone asks. Well, are you going to head back? And I'm like, well, I don't know. A lot of people want to do it, and right now I feel like I got the experience I wanted out of it. You never say never. Well, because at one point I told my wife, I told her if I ever start talking about Barkley or Badwater, that's a silent plea for help. That means get the get the pillow. Just put me out in my sleep sometime, because I've gone over the edge, and so here I am talking to you about my experience at Barkley. So I'm glad she knows where I'm coming from.
Start the car and get the garden hose.
That's right.
Do you think that you will attempt Badwater?
No.
That was a quick answer.
Yeah, no. And it's changed how it was. And living where I do at altitude and where it's cold, the heat just blows my guts up. I struggle in the heat. That's between that and the entry fee is the same reason I won't ever run Western States. There's part of me that wants to be part of the first 100-miler and all that stuff. But then there's the heat, and I just don't do well together.
What's your most favorite experience or race that you've done so far?
That's a tough one. There's been a million experiences. It's kind of the little things and more the experience with who you're with than the course or the race itself. Favorite place to race would either be in the Pyrenees in Andorra. I did Ronda del Sims one year, or Hardrock. Hardrock is, I probably had my best race there a couple of years ago, and I was hoping to be finally under 30 hours. I'd run it a couple times before, and I ended up under 29, like 28. This is 46 or something. It was the first year Killian ran and stuff, and so to be kind of part of all that is probably my favorite.
Well, you don't achieve the kind of things that you have achieved without having discipline. Can you tell me some of the things that you do daily or weekly that have the greatest payouts?
I think just running, balancing that between running enough and not running too much. I mean, it's a specificity thing, right? If you want to learn how to, you're going to be a cyclist, you get on your bike. If you want to swim, so they tell me you got to get in the water and swim. Yeah, so I think just being consistent day after day, year after year, and putting in that time is probably been my biggest success, and staying injury free. This is until this last surgery is the first time I'd had really, other than a few little things here and there, a few niggles, is the first time that I've had to deal with anything like this.
How do you keep your training fresh and avoid burnout?
It's a good question. Well, we get a lot of winter here in Western Wyoming, and that helps divide up some of it. I spend a lot of time running, but on snowshoes, or I'm trying to learn how to ski. I'm a horrible skier, so I'm trying to do some of those things. But it's always kind of like a big breath of fresh air to when that snow finally leaves and we can get up to the mountains, and there's enough stoke there, and we have hundreds and hundreds and thousands of miles of trails, And then I think just thinking of new events, new places to run, gives me new goals. And it gets dark right now, and it gets worse here for about a month. It's dark by 6 o'clock, and I finally decided a few years ago, it doesn't matter if you're just chasing your headlamp anyway. It doesn't matter where you're running as far as needing to get somewhere else to run, because you're chasing that beam of light, right? Either through the forest or down the road or wherever it might be. And it becomes more, I guess, of just enjoying the process as much as where you're at or where you're going.
Well, you said that you're learning to ski because you're not a good skier. Is there a pattern in your life of you sort of attacking areas that you're weak in or intimidated in or unfamiliar with?
Probably not a ton, else I probably know how to ski by now. But I think, most people that get kind of wrapped up in distance running and that sort of thing are in some sort of self-improvement mindset. I have lots of friends who came to ultra running because they were climbers, kayakers, outdoor athletes, and they've come to this. I've always been a runner, and I, came to running through running. I'm always teasing them about that. And then, so I think it's just kind of a natural process to maybe the curiosity. And those guys make that look so dang cool and easy when they're sliding down that mountain on those skis. Makes me wish I could do it.
Oh yeah, it's a lot harder than you think. I went to we have down here, we have like a fake snow mountain thing, where they blow the fake snow, and it's not really a mountain because you know what a mountain is living there. But I couldn't even do that, even on the just the small fake snow mountain. It was terrible.
Yeah, there's some counterintuitive of leaning into your boots, and leaning forward when you're going downhill. I don't know. I think that's the hard part for me.
Vaughn, if you're talking about Gatlinburg and trying to say there's anything fake about it, you and I are going to have a problem.
No, I was actually talking about St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay, we went there. St. Louis is fake.
Yeah. There's nothing mountainous about that city at all.
Well, Ty, a lot of the people that I'm trying to connect with are the people who are sitting on the couch, the people that want something different in their life, but they're not real sure how to go about that. I feel like that the athletes and the people that are already knee deep in this sort of know what to do, and they know the results and the good things that come from trail running and just fitness in general. What kind of advice would you give to someone that wanted to stick their toe in the water of the fitness world, but was too afraid to do it?
I think as it pertains to, trail running, get out and check it out. Volunteer at an aid station. I think people get nervous because they say, well, I don't look like a runner, or, I'm not a runner. I don't know if I'd fit in, are people going to judge me the way I look or the way I act or what I do? And I think that can be a nice segue into seeing what the community is about. Because, I'm always just completely impressed and amazed at the people. You're at a 100-mile race and you're sitting there at the finish line, and the people that can will their bodies and get around the course and up over the mountains and wherever. Not everybody looks like Mike Wardian or, the skinny kind of runner kind of guy. And that, I think that can be encouraging and see, especially when they see how welcoming the community is. And you got to find out, I guess, what your thing is. Find out what it is that you need to be active. If that's hiking, if that's biking, because there's got to be some sort of motivation. It's pretty hard to go out and do something you hate every day. That's just not human nature. Yeah, I don't know that habit overcomes all of that.
Well, you said a couple things there. And one is, if you want to be proven wrong really quick, then try to judge somebody and how fast they are by how they look.
Yeah, no doubt. And, unfortunately, as human beings, that's kind of our first reaction or whatever, or comparing whatever we have built up in our mind about ourselves or about someone else. And, there's a certain honesty. I call it the shorty short rule. You got your 1.5 inch inseam. The truth comes out pretty quickly, what you're made of.
And also volunteering. That's a great way to see how laid back, how friendly, and what really goes into a trail race. If you can get to an aid station and just hear the conversation and see what's actually going on out there. It's really, not to be too overly dramatic, it's a beautiful thing to watch.
It's a lot of fun. I got my parents hooked in. Since my dad just loves it. He's at that age. He likes to tell the same story over and over, and it's awesome because he gets to crew and he gets to go from like one aid station to the next aid station. They can't go anywhere. They're stuck. They have to hear that story, and it's going to be fresh and new to those guys. And so it's a lot of fun in a way you can get everybody involved. I know, like for my family, my wife's been amazingly patient with me. My kids, they don't know any different. I've had conversations with them. I'm like, I hope you don't end up in therapy someday, because they're just like, Dad's always doing something with running. And but it can be a whole family thing. You can find a community. There's a little of that positive peer pressure. There's sometimes shrimp involved. I mean, what do you got to lose, right?
That's right. Exactly right. Well, Ty, I told you that we would not take up more than an hour of your time. I know that you're a busy guy and you have to get busy improving the life of the kids that you work with and mentor and coach. I can't tell you how much I appreciate your accepting the invitation to be on the podcast and taking the time to speak with us.
I appreciate you reaching out, and it's always nice to meet new people. And it's a pretty small community, and maybe we'll cross paths sometime.
That sounds great. Sure. Is there anything that you would like to plug before we disconnect?
There's plenty of that. I don't know. Just I like your stance. I love your approach. Hopefully people, you take a step out there and get out of your comfort zone just a little bit, and you might. Find that one thing that keeps you pushing along, because there's plenty of stuff in life that we have to do. We got to go to work and we got to pay the bills, and you got to do those things. And it makes life a whole lot better when you can find something outside of the have-tos that you're passionate about. And it's super enriching. And like most things, you find when you give a little bit, you get back way more than you give, and that's the part that makes this community so great.
Well, once again, Ty, we appreciate it, man. I'm going to keep in touch with you if that's okay, and hopefully we can get you back on the podcast a little bit later on and find out what you've been up to.
Okay, I appreciate it. Good luck.
Yeah, thanks a lot,
buddy.
Okay, we'll see you.